We've got a new moon coming up in Gemini in a couple of days. I'm going to talk about what that is and what to do with it, what not to do with it. And also we have a really cool alignment happening today. The alignment today, you can see it in the sky after the sun sets. There's these three bright heavenly bodies, and they are not your favorite actor or actress. They are these lights in the sky, and they are beautiful and they are bright. And what they are is Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury all lined up. Jupiter's been there for a minute, but now we've got Jupiter, and one of the other ones have been there for a minute, but now we've got all three there. So what that means is that between now and the new moon on Sunday, we have a really cool thing that we don't get to have very often. And that is that Venus, which has to do with the heart and love in its high degree, which nets to an 11, which is a numerical number of mastery and power and truth. It represents truth. It represents the kind of truth where, like, no matter what, it keeps coming down to this. So that Venus type of experience, that heartfelt experience, is right in alignment with expansion. Jupiter has to do with like expansion and growth and leadership and good luck. So it's very lucky. And it's also in the high degrees, that Jupiter. It's 1 degree smaller than where Venus is. So, and its net is a 9. So it nets to a 9. It's up in the high 20s, and it nets to a 9, which has to do with completion. Like, finally this occurs. It is final. It's finally happening. It's finally there. So there's that kind of a feeling happening. And I'm going to get to all of it in a minute. And then the next thing is Mercury's up there in the teen degrees. And the teen degrees, it's at 15 degrees, which nets to a 6. So 15, it just doubly expands the energy of Mercury, because Mercury is the mind, and number 5 has to do with the mind, and 15 has to do with what we receive mentally. So this is the time where it's during the season of Gemini. The sun is in Gemini, which has to do with communication. So this is so all three of these heavenly sparkly bodies that you're going to see when the sun sets, these all are in the constellation of Cancer. And Cancer has to do with like being cozy and being at home and finding a sense of belonging and finding a sense of security and safety within the family and maybe the community and so on and so forth. Chosen family and your own like intuition and like watery type vibes. Okay. And it's sensitive, very sensitive. So we have this very sensitive power, this power where sensitivities and being sensitive and being in touch with our heart can help us receive information that we haven't received before until now. And this is really great when it is applied, this energy, if it is harnessed and applied for the collective in an Aquarian type manner, that is really good. Not just like karma points, like we don't do things to build karma points, but we cannot forget that we are literally writing out our karma right now. With this move of Aquarius into Pluto, that's like that's more than once in a lifetime. That is like once in every 2 or 3 centuries kind of like change. Like Aquarius in Pluto, like we are writing. This is the age of Aquarius. We are writing out our karma. We are writing out the karma of all those who will come after us. So we can get really altruistic with this if we want to, when we think about like our loved ones and our chosen family and our family that's closest to us and those that we're coziest with. We can get altruistic and go beyond that. We can kind of take all of that and expand it to this awareness that, like, when I was 5 years old, I was standing on a beach and the beach was filled with people as far as the eyes could see. And I had just been to some kind of church thing. And it was a different kind of church thing than what I was used to. It wasn't like the mass where you like kneel down and get up and kneel down and pray and kneel. It was some other kind of church thing where they like sang and danced a lot. Anyway, I came out of that church thing and I'm standing on this beach as far as the eyes can see. And I'm like, everybody here is my brother and sister. And there's just this kind of like knowing and this awareness, like I'm related to everyone here. They are all my family. Now, granted, I was like, part of that is wish fulfilling. Part of it was programming because at the time there was some kind of commercial too on TV for some kind of outreach or charity where they had like all the little people holding hands and around a earth that was shaped like a heart. And like all the people were different colors of the rainbow. Like, so like part of it's programming, but it was in the collective, and part of it was personal too, because I was an only child. It was very lonely. But then another part of it too was like, this was Santa Monica in the 70s. And like, I think I was actually before I was 5. There was like a love cult that would like hang out there all the time. And my mom also would like take naps on the beach during the daytime. And she worked the night shift. So I'd be playing with all these kids that were growing up in like a love cult. So anyway, somewhere along the line, I picked up this idea, like we're all brothers and sisters. And I've had that feeling in my life at various moments in time. But, it would be that kind of awareness, like we don't all have that experience. We don't all feel that way. We don't all feel that way all the time. But like, if there ever was a time to feel that, it would be with this Aquarius and Pluto. So you take like the Aquarius and Pluto, which is like, that's going to last a long time. It started at the beginning of the year. And then you take the transit that we have right now between now and the new moon on Sunday, which is in a couple days. And this aspect that we have right now is, it's Cancer. It's very sensitive, and we've got the mind there, the heart there, and then Jupiter there, which makes everything lucky and expansive. This is the time, if there ever was a time to get people to understand something that would bring more love into the world, this is the time for that. This is the time to be heard. If you've got something to say during Gemini season, when Venus and Mercury, the planets of love and the mind, and Jupiter are all aligned in these higher degrees. One is the degree of like the community, and the others are high degrees of like not just society, but like the higher degrees. Like, if there was heaven, like this is the degrees like that these are at. So this is the time like to get like something understood. If you have a message to share, Gemini, we're in the season of Gemini, this is the time like to get it to be heard. This is the time, like as the moon is waning into this new moon, it's in a sense the light and the dark is separating. The new moon is dark. So we're getting rid of like any light that has been misdirected to shine on something other than like something really important that needs to be understood and heard, and that probably has needed to be understood and heard for a long time, regarding your community or your extended family, or regarding like whoever you're feeling altruistic about. And it could be used for personal purposes too, your internal family, just the people in your household if you wish. But why stop there? I mean, when you got this kind of like alignment, why stop there? If it's something that you've got to say that could be really helpful about housing the homeless and you want to say it right now. This is the time to get people to hear it. This is the time to get the message to the movers and the shakers. Get the message to the people with the most privilege. The people who have the biggest support systems are the people with the most privilege, right? This is the time to get it to them, to get it to their ears, to get it to their minds, to get it to their hearts. This is the time to get your message out there. In regards to that. And we're reaching the higher degrees of Gemini. So that means that things are getting louder. You know, it starts off where it's just like a little bit of like gossip, you know, like when it's in the first 10 degrees, it's just like, oh, a little gossip, like between me, myself, and I, but like listening to a little bit. Then when it gets in the teen degrees, like, oh, gossiping with the neighbors, you know, and then when it gets to the higher degrees, you're like, you know, contacting like the mayor and stuff, like, or beyond, or even less than that, but like you're, you know, more in society. So like, this is the time where it gets like a little louder with the communication, and there's so much communication. So between like, you know, when I'm recording this, we have a few more days until we get to the moon being completely dark. It's a good time to cut out all the other unnecessary stuff. If the light hasn't been shining on the subject that's really going to make a difference, get that remaining light to really zero in on what it is that's been on the sidelines that needs to be heard and understood with the heart. Cancer is very sensitive and it's very intuitive. And this is a time where people are going to be able to take in, they're going to be able to take it in a little bit better, I think. Granted, you know, Cancerian energy can be a little crabby. It can be a little bit like, you're not coming into my shell. But it can also be like sensitive and recognize history and have a respect for history. So if this is presented, if the information that you have is presented in like, here are examples throughout history, like take this in, it's going to be felt on like a felt sense, on a cellular memory level. So, something that I recently said, you know, and it might be really uncomfortable, but this is like in my own personal world, this is something that came up. Can you imagine if the leaders of Stonewall stayed quiet because they were afraid someone might feel ashamed? So maybe for you, your leaders that you would possibly be looking to for inspiration might not be the people of Stonewall. Maybe for you, it's something else. Maybe there's another type of leadership. Maybe it's the women's suffrage rallies, or maybe it's the people that made it possible for women to have like bank accounts and be able to vote, or maybe it's, you know, something else. Maybe it's someone who made it possible for more people to have housing, or whatever it is that like, whatever it is, those people at some point in time, maybe it's the Erin Brockovich thing, you know, like with like environmental stuff and having clean water, like just basic clean water that doesn't give you like cancer and diseases and leukemia and stuff. Whatever it is, like there have been times throughout our history as human beings where people had to get louder. And so imagine if the leaders stayed quiet because they were afraid someone might feel ashamed. We wouldn't get anywhere, ever. No one would. Can you imagine if activists throughout history chose not to act because accountability might make people uncomfortable? Too often, when marginalized people ask for support, repair, and accountability, it's only to be ignored by those with more privilege. It's to be ignored by people with more resources and social power. So instead of listening, learning, or showing up, they're told they shouldn't have persisted. They're told they shouldn't have gotten louder because it made someone feel ashamed. That's a toxic mindset. If someone else feels shame, that's theirs to examine. It's not our job to take that away from them. We can't hand it to them. If it comes up from them, that means that they're getting a signal that they need to reflect or change. It's not proof that the person who's asking for support did something wrong. Too often, people who have benefited from community support, there are people who are marginalized, and there are people who become less marginalized because they get community support. There are people who have benefited from community support even to the point where they're like, I'm so grateful that I was able to get this community support and I didn't have to get loud about it and I could just like handle this quietly. Yeah. Too often, these people are unwilling to extend the same support to those who are more marginalized than them. Instead, they label the persistence as public shaming. And they try to silence the people that are acting for inclusion. It starts off where they'll just kind of like make fun of it. Like, oh, you're really special. Like, you're special, like small bus special. That's like how they start. Okay. Like, oh, that's all you are. You're just somebody who like, that's your whole life. And that's you. Okay. I get it. I'm bored of that. You're special. They start off with that kind of a vibe. And then they move, if you keep persisting, if you keep saying, no, homeless people need houses. No, disabled people need resources. No, people that, like people need respect and not to be mocked. No, people need this. They really do need this. The louder you get, the more persistent you get, the less they mock you and the more they say that you are a bully and you are shaming. So if people have to speak up repeatedly about something that they need, they are oppressed and they have unmet needs. And the problem is not that they're being too loud. The problem is that they weren't heard when they spoke quietly. Community only exists because people refuse to stay silent. All the good things that we have only exist because people refused to stay silent. There's always going to be somebody that's going to tell you, no, right now, this isn't the time. How dare you try to make this all about you? You must be an outsider. You're not really who you say you are if you're trying to do that because this is a celebration and this isn't the right time and you need to be quiet and that's not proper. There's always going to be people that do that. Always. And it's not always the people on the outside of whatever it is that you're trying to do or whatever it is where the needs are showing up. A lot of times we perpetuate silencing each other because we've been so silenced in the past. Even when we get some healing and we get some support from communities and we become less marginalized, we still have this thing where we experienced being silenced, and we will unconsciously perpetuate that if we are not recognizing that that could happen and making a commitment, a conscious commitment, not to re-perpetuate that oppression. Marginalized people should not be expected to stay quiet to protect the comfort of those who refuse to listen. And those who have experienced marginalization themselves need to be looking at where do they fit on the map and who is more marginalized than them that they need to be standing up with and upholding and centering and hearing. That is what the Age of Aquarius is. That is what rewriting our karma with Pluto in Aquarius is. And right now is the time to speak up about that stuff. We're in Gemini season. We're going to a Gemini new moon. So the new moon is the darker part. This is the part where people are going to be going internal. And this is the part where not only are people going to be going internal with their information and their intellect and their communication and really like reflecting internally, but there are high degrees of love right up there with the mind. Venus and Jupiter. Jupiter is expanding the heart, and they are at high degrees that can make an impact on a social level, like in the social network that is the community and beyond, like in society. And the mind is up there too. The mind is like right up there. It's in the teen degrees. It's the heart is ruling a little more, and Jupiter is expanding it all, the mind and the heart. And it's in Cancer. It's in this awareness, like this is our home. Planet Earth is our home. These communities are our home. these people are our brothers and sisters. That's Aquarius in Pluto. These people are our relatives, are our siblings. We're related in one way, shape, or form or another. And it's time to hear each other. And it's not in effort to virtue signal or be like, oh, look at me, I'm such a good person. I help marginalized people and look at all the money I make off of it. It's not that. That's not what this is about. This is about really doing it, not taking advantage of the fact that you could make money off of it. But if you do, you do, but actually really showing up and really doing it and recognizing like, hey, you know, my people might not exist today if it wasn't for community support and people listening and people hearing and people taking accountability to do repair work to help the system as a whole. And the way that we help the system as a whole, and I use this analogy a lot, you could be wearing a fine ass suit, looking hot to the nines, right? You could be looking real good in your nice silk suit with your cashmere socks. But if you got a hole in the sock, that sock needs to be repaired. And tension is going to happen to that sock. Eventually, your toe's going to poke through that sock. Eventually, you know, you don't just get rid of a pair of cashmere socks that you sew that up. Keep those. Like, it's hard to get good cashmere. It's only going to get harder if we don't start coming together. So like, you sew that up, you know, and it's not like, you're not doing it like, oh, I am so above you. And I told you, sock, not to have a hole in it. And I told you, sock, to stop bothering me, but you kept doing it, so I guess I'll give you a little attention. No, you're just like, let me sew this up real quick. Let me take accountability for the fact that I have something nice here and I value it. We need to recognize that there is value, even in our marginalized population. You wouldn't be here if people didn't recognize your value as wherever you are on the line of marginalization. If you know, there wasn't groups of folks that were willing to be like, we are valuable, and other folks that are willing to listen and be like, that's valuable, let's save it and take care of it, wouldn't be here today, right? We sew up the sock, even if it's something that like is hidden in the shoe and it's like starting to poke out a little bit. We don't like have to wrestle with like, oh, it's just gonna make somebody feel ashamed, or I feel so ashamed that I was so hole in my sock. No, just sew it up, like fix it and do the repair and move on. So this is the time where I feel like people are gonna have enough love and lovey-dovey like sensitivity to be able to take in information. So this is the time to like, you know, if you got privileged people around you that are capable of reading books and learning, you know, like reach out, like do it in the best way you can, you know, and I'm not saying like, you know, I'm not saying you're not going to run into defenses and denial and the attempts to be silenced, but if there ever was a time to get a little louder, this is a time where people can receive it with a little more grace and love and really reflect on it like these next couple of days. So if you're seeing this, I'm recording this on June 14th today, June 12th. Okay. And the new moon is on the 14th. So if you get this sometime in the future, or the past, wouldn't that be trippy? But if you get this and it's not anywhere near June 14th, just know that whatever you were working on or changing, you can apply like the messages of this to whenever you receive this, and know that you'll be seeing the fruition of things that have occurred in regards to these subject matters within the next 6 months. So what we're in, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So you'll be seeing this play out until like December. But I urge you, sensitive, like, you know, we're in sensitive waters in this constellation of Cancer with it being magnified. I urge you to harness it. Harness this opportunity to share, if you know, things that'll make a difference in an altruistic way for more than just yourself or people that are just like you. Maybe you know of something that could make a difference for people that are like you, but a little different too. This is the time. This is the time, if there ever was one, to speak up and get loud about it. What not to do? We're almost done with this video. What not to do? Don't take it personally when they try to shame you for advocating for other people. Don't take it personally when they try to shame you for advocating for yourself. Don't take it personally if they try to tell you that you shamed people by sticking up for your truth. Like, if there are things that you've had to say on multiple occasions, don't be afraid to take the next step towards securing yourself and building that. You know, there are creatures in the world that have shells for a reason. You know, turtles have shells to protect themselves, and crabs have shells to protect themselves. And we're about to move into crab season. By that I mean Cancerian season. There is a reason for that. There's a reason that, like, the protection, sometimes you have to speak up to build more protection around you. Here's an example. I got a neighbor who used to train their dog to defecate on the curtilage of our property. And they would just do this over and over and over again. And like, it's hard not to take that personally. And this was a neighbor who was very territorial, didn't want to share like common spaces, and would often say like that the common spaces were actually their space because they didn't have enough of a backyard or whatever. It's hard not to take that personally, especially if you're already a marginalized person. Like, and there's different levels of marginalization. So like, you know, it's hard to like not be like, whoa, you know. And I live in an area where like there can be some surfer bro mentality that's very territorial. And like the dog, they like kind of raised it to like do this, and it got to the point where like the dog was defecating on our front doorstep. The dog started attacking people that would come to visit. And then other dogs started, you know, like, oh, that's fun. That looks like fun. Let's start attacking. So the dogs would start nipping at and jumping on people trying to deliver packages. If you want to live in a place where you can get your packages, and you want to live in a place where you're not going to open up the door to poop on your front doorstep, you better do something more than just get angry about it. You better do something more than just yell about it. But it also, on the same token, it doesn't matter how nice you are. You can't take it personally that there are people in this world that are entitled and privileged and do not believe in having accountability. They might, you know, be alcoholics and use denial as a defense mechanism. But regardless, it's not for you to take personally if people don't want to take accountability and do the repair work to like retrain their animals not to defecate on your front doorstep. Like, but it is your responsibility to build enough of security around your own self-respect and around your own like sense of self and willingness to be here. And this may reach you on another level. You know, maybe it's just personal life. Maybe it's not everybody gets a piece of you all the time, and you deserve to have like a piece of yourself to yourself. You deserve to have like a night to yourself, or a day to yourself, or a weekend once in a while to yourself, or to do like just purely what is good for you, where you're not caretaking. Like maybe it reaches you in that level. But this Cancerian, these high planets like in high degrees in the constellation of Cancer, which is so sensitive, we just have to remember, like, it's not personal, and yet we must make it personal, because we all have a right to be existing in fairness and equity. So do what it takes to build your protection around yourself, to keep yourself in fairness. And, you know, a lot of us have, like, you know, the more marginalized we are, a lot of us have experienced this, like, where we have to stand up for ourselves. And sometimes those of us who have had to stand up for ourselves and had others stand up for us, we don't necessarily remember that it's our turn to be doing that for others too. So, you know, if your friends and neighbors aren't showing up to, like, be like, hey, that's not cool, like, stop that, you know, like, we like this person, we don't want poop on their front doorstep, or that's not cool, like, give your parent a break and, like, let them have some time to themselves. They're on recess now, this is their recess, you know, whatever it is. Like, just because other people aren't, like, stepping up to, like, be with you on it, don't let go. Like, don't forget that you deserve, like, Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, you deserve tending to also. You deserve repair and accountability to happen for you too. Don't forget that. Okay. So that's all I gotta say. Don't be afraid to get a little louder. Don't let people say that you're publicly shaming people when you have to get public to get something to happen, or to get something to stop happening that's harming. And just try not to take it personally that this is, like, people's unconscious defense mechanisms and how they react to stuff. Cheers.